right, welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast. Today is a special episode, sitting down with Larry of the Here's Johnny podcast to talk about something that he probably doesn't get to talk about a whole lot on his horror-based film and game and book review podcast, but we're going to talk about Pokemon because Pokemon Legends Arceus just came out recently, and both of us have played an extensive amount of it. So Larry, welcome to the show, man.
Alex, I am really excited to be here with you. We've had you on several times now. We had
I think
you
twice.
on for System Shock 2, and then the anime. What was that called?
Blood Sea.
Blood Sea, that's right.
And we've got more anime for you in the future one of these days. Believe you me.
But no, when you reached out to review this, I've never reviewed a Pokemon game before. I've been on a couple of Pokemon podcasts. It's actually what kind of wet my toes into podcasting.
Yeah.
Like being on this podcast, I'm not sure it's still around. It's called Puckle.
Okay.
Pokemon Underground Championship League.
Oh, fun.
But I was on for like some trivia shows, and like it's kind of funny. I found out that the host of that show was like a grad student at OSU, so we hung out a little bit. But
That's super cool, man.
Any excuse to talk about Pokemon, I am ready. I have my Pokemon mug that my mother-in-law painted for me. I can show you.
Oh.
My favorite Mons on it, if you can tell.
Yes, and so people who are listening via audio, we've got Nidoking, Mewtwo, Gardevoir, Sylveon,
Mimikyu, and Slowking.
Yeah, dude, that's cool, man.
I wanted Spiritomb instead of Mimikyu, but my mother-in-law said that was too hard to paint.
Oh, funny. That looks really good. She's really talented. That's solid.
She's got some crazy talent. Yeah, Taffy's work is great. She's the one who made Rachel that alien wine glass for her birthday last year that Justin and I sent her.
Can you plug that? Does she like sell things online?
She won't. I'm trying to get her like an Etsy or trying to get any kind of storefront. She won't do it. I've tried so hard.
Funny.
She will not do it. It's funny. She likes just doing her own thing. Like, she actually just painted Devin a like a 4-foot by like 6-foot woodscape with like monsters hidden in the background because she's got an office. She got promoted, so Devin has an office. So her
cool.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, she counted, but she will not capitalize on it no matter how hard we tell her to.
And just to recap, I mean, Larry here, I've been listening to your guys' podcast for, I think, the past, like, 3 or 4 years. So, since, like, moving to Alaska, I think. And so now I'm in Minnesota, which is a whole thing. And you guys have really been putting on a great show. I've really enjoyed, like, listening to the various different types of content. So, like, listening to books, listening about the various films, and doing, like, these little mini-series. Like, it's all been a lot of fun. So if any of my listeners has not checked out the Here's Johnny podcast, find that on your podcatchers. There's some really, really excellent content there. And then you've also worked with a bunch of just excellent people in your network as well. So let's talk a little bit about, like, who are you involved with in the podcasting space?
Yeah, sure. So besides me and Justin, that's the main one. I have started a separate show with Rachel of the Zombie Girl Network. She and I are doing a podcast called the Untitled Nic Cage Show. We are reviewing the films of Nic Cage.
Hilarious. I've listened to most of them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Rachel and I, we first came in contact with each other because when Justin and I reviewed the Suspiria remake, we got a lot of shit for it. Mainly because Justin didn't see it, so he read a synopsis, and I was the only one who saw it. And I felt like it wasn't very true to the original, and I missed a lot of like the feminist messaging that was trying to be done. So I went online and just tried to find like feminist-forward podcasts. That's when I found Rachel, and Rachel came on thinking we were going to like use her as like a straw man to like bully. She didn't realize we were bringing her on to like educate us. And then since then. Yeah, we've done a lot of really good content with her, and that's pretty much it. We have a couple other podcasts that we are kind of like in a small network with, just to kind of put commercials on and promote each other.
Yeah, the Kaleidoscope Media Network, if I'm not mistaken.
Kaleidoscope Media, that's exactly right. Yeah, we have Wizard Studies, Out of Contracts. Oh, well, Wizard Studies is a Harry Potter one, focus, obviously. Out of Contracts is these guys are using a random number generator to watch random ass episodes of Star Trek and talk about them. It's really, especially like my Star Trek knowledge isn't as good as some other people's out there, but it's a lot of fun to listen to. And then we also have That's Not How Science Works, and their podcast is breaking down movies and TV shows that use bad science.
I think I've listened to at least an episode of the Wizard Studies, but I haven't tried the Star Trek one or the science one, so I'll have to give those a listen.
Yeah, the Star Trek one's very interesting. Again, you have to, I think, to really appreciate what they're doing, you kind of have to know like how they're hopping around because they'll go from like one of the OG episodes to like the next generation, and they're just all
Right.
over the place. So it's interesting. It's a big ask.
All right, now let's get into just kind of your history with Pokemon. I know for me, like I've been playing since like Gold and Silver on the Game Boy from back in the day, and I remember the very first like American Pokemon commercial where the guy lures them into a bus and then like compresses them down in like a trash compactor. Oh, it's really funny. Look up like original Game Boy red and blue commercial. But I remember like every little note to that commercial because I was like at that young impressionable age. And so I really got into Pokemon in Silver, and I would stick it in my Super Game Boy and play it on the Super Nintendo. Dude, I used to spend whole summers just playing Silver, and so I've kind of been with it ever since. But where did you kind of like get into Pokemon?
So I remember the first time I ever played it. It was Pokemon Red. I was over at a buddy's house. His name was Phil, and he pulled out his Game Boy and he had Pokemon Red. I think first grade, maybe.
Yeah.
Second grade.
And for
Super
context, I'm 30, and I imagine you're about the same age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was just amazing. And I remembered a couple months after that, I got Silver.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, I've talked about it before, but Pokemon Silver is a top 4 video game for me of all time. Like, I can't, it's very hard for me to differentiate between that, Final Fantasy X, Resident Evil 4, and Spyro the Dragon. Like, those 4 games just are just so special to me and like where I've gotten to today with video games. So not only did I start getting into the games, I got into the cards. I was more of a collector than a battler. That would change over time. I always got the games upon release. I played all of them. Like even when I was at West Point, I remember I would go to like the comms and I picked up X and Y at the time. But I've always played the main lines on release. I've dabbled in some of the side games. Mystery Dungeons are probably my favorite of the side games. I play Pokemon Go. I have Pokemon Quest still on my phone. I'm just trying to get enough mats to go get Mew. It's the last Pokemon I need to have that 100% completed. I play all the old games constantly. I've done ROM hacks of them. I truly love Pokemon. It's a franchise I never want to kind of leave. And then on top of that, when I graduated from college, a way I try to make friends is I looked online for like card nights, like league nights.
Yeah.
And I started playing Pokemon TCG kind of competitively for a while.
Oh.
I went to I went to the North American National Tournament twice.
Wow. Okay.
My best record was 4-5. Actually, that was a rough day because I won the first 4 and then I blanked. But I still have all my cards. I have them all in order, and I still have a lot of really good friends that I made from doing that too.
That's super cool. And here pretty soon we're gonna get like an updated online app for the TCG.
I'm very excited. Yeah, so I have TCG on my computer, and I definitely still play it. It's kind of nice because the way that system works is you can do theme sets.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to spend money or buy physical cards and packs to do better. You can to get cards, but if you have a good base and you just play enough, you get enough coins to buy what you need, and then you can trade inside of it. And now going forward with this new system, they're actually implementing this like gem thing, which I'm sure is going to cost parents of kids who get into it now a lot of money. But since I've had TCGO since it started, I've had it for so long, and like they're changing it so that if you have more than 4 copies of a card, which is the max you could run in a deck, they're going to gem it. So I've looked at it. I've like kind of looked like some of the calculators that they're predicting. I should have enough gems for a long time to like build competitive decks into play.
That's exciting,
and it's super nice too. Like if people are interested, like it's free to download, it's free to play, and the tutorials on it will teach you Pokemon. Like I've tried to play Magic, and I've always been very intimidated because the player base is kind of intimidating because they take it so seriously. And
they can be in certain circles. Totally agree with that.
And the moves are kind of crazy, but because things happening while turns are happening, right? It's not just like stagnant. With Pokemon, it's very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon very much feels like chess.
Okay.
And
interesting.
It's like it's your turn then my turn. You can kind of see where people are setting up and you can kind of guess, but it doesn't feel like you have to like know what your opponent's going to do during your turn. That's not going to happen, right? They can't react to you. But no, Yeah, I can talk about anything Pokemon as long as people want. I've watched all the movies.
Yeah.
I went all of the re-releases. When the Pokemon I Choose You came out, I made my wife come see it with me.
Is that the one they did for CG? Because that one was bad.
No, it was an animated one. It's the one where Luxray dies.
Is that the one where Pikachu talks?
Yes.
I remember seeing like TikTok videos or something where Pikachu said something, like actually said something, and somebody in the theater's like, "What the fuck?"
So that was really bad. But there was a part in it leading up to it where this little kid's talking about how he isn't like really like Pokemon or how he keeps his distance from Pokemon because he had a Luxray that got lost in the woods, and the Luxray curled around him and died.
Oh gosh!
Oh my dude, it was so heavy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Detective Pikachu. I went and saw that on release night. Nah, man. Pokemon is.
It's an important thing.
It's the first video game love I ever had because I played that before Spyro. So
yeah, and I kind of have this similar like. Pokemon's one of those franchises that I think has the potential to, like, really bring global audiences together. Like, I think the closest we've ever gotten to global peace was when Pokemon Go came out, that, like, magic summer in, like, 2017 or whatever it was.
I specifically remember my wife and I and her sister and her then husband, they came to us and we drove to campus to Ohio State. And we got there at, like, 7 o'clock, and we were out running around with crowds of not just college kids, but like there's crowds of people like talking to each other until like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Kids, elderly, it was nuts.
Cops playing with us, like it was like no one was worried, no one was like having any issues. Like we were always walking around. People were sharing battery packs. It was really magical. It was really, really special. And
it was the first time I've been in a park and engaged with other people in the park, except for the people that I came with.
Yeah, and like I still do community days, not as much as I used to. I used to do them every single time. But there's a park like in downtown Columbus where it is always like on community day, it is always full for the entire time.
That's so cool.
And yeah, I don't know. I think Pokemon is just. I remember when I really got in love with it. And my dad, he would buy me packs and stuff, and he was always like, "It's going to be a fad, like it's going to die out." And I said, "No, it won't." And some did, right? Like the Power Rangers, that hype train died out and stuff. It's still around, but not like it used to.
No, that was one of my first pop culture loves. I grew up watching the Power Rangers. I've met the Green Ranger. I talk about it a lot, like that. So I get where you're coming from with that analogy.
Yeah, it was just a little bit different, and then Pokemon it endures, but it just doesn't endure. It grows.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk Arceus because this was a big step for TPCI, and I think well, we'll talk about it. I guess we'll talk about it. Besides you getting involved with the commercials and then Red, is there anything else that kind of sticks out for you in your Pokemon history?
Well, so the big thing is I got into the cards from a collector perspective before there was even a TCG. It was just an image of the Pokemon and like an anime screenshot on the back with a description. And I still have several of those cards. I think Topps.
Those are on cardboard, right?
I think so. Yeah, they're like Topps branded things.
I have those too.
So my grandpa, who I was very close with at that age, me and him would like go to the grocery store. I'm talking Foodland in Calhoun County, West Virginia. And we would pick up Pokemon cards at Foodland, Calhoun County, West Virginia. And I'd get like one and think it was a big deal. And I always wanted Charizard because he's a dragon. I loved dragons growing up. I had some cool statues, some cool toys. I loved Jurassic Park and monsters and stuff. So the dragon Charizard always stuck out to me as a cool character. And one day I got that holographic Charizard and like, you know, little kid me freaked out. And my grandpa thought it was fun and funny. And at the age of like 10, my grandpa passed away. And that was a big deal for like me and my cousin Caleb. And so I've always kind of associated Charizard with memories of my grandpa. And so that is kind of like why he's my favorite Pokemon, and I still have that card. It's like still in my collection. I take very good care of it. And so that's kind of like the big moment that like connected me to others. My sister really likes Pokemon, so I helped her with some of her just like social anxieties and things like that through engaging with Pokemon and teaching her how to read better and those sort of things. So she got like my Game Boy Color, which I passed down to her. And me and her, anytime a new Pokemon game comes out or there's something cool in the space, she's an artist. You can find her, I believe, at Moon Alley on Twitter and such. And she actually made the logo for us on Forever Classic Games, the one with me and Zach. She's improved considerably since then. But so I've really connected with people through Pokemon. And then just the fact that like nowadays you can trade like a Weedle that's American and get like a Weedle from, I don't know, like India or something. And I just think that's cool. Like, this really does bring people together in a way that I didn't expect. But let's talk about just our favorite Pokemon games in general. So, Larry, which one's your favorite?
So I'm going to put Silver, Gold, Crystal, and Heart, Gold, Soul, Silver to the side.
Okay.
Because those are just, like I said, those are like top tier.
Yeah, they're damn near perfect video games.
Especially Soul Silver and Heart Gold.
Yup. Which are my favorites.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could pick that, but I feel like that's a really big cop-out.
Sure.
So, for me, I would say probably Ruby and Sapphire. Because I feel like that was our first time going outside of Johto and Kanto. The Mons felt different. I got both Ruby and Sapphire, and then you had the two different teams, right? It wasn't just Team Rocket. There was two different bad teams, and sometimes, depending on the version, one team was good, one team was bad. And that was a lot. That was really different. There were like side missions. There wasn't a big final boss like Silver had, which I think is one reason why I love Silver so much with climbing
Mount Silver, facing red.
Fighting red, exactly. Like I talk about that on the podcast. I think that's like one of the best video game experiences I've ever had. But I like the Mon design. I like tall grass and the different kinds of bikes, the water, the diving. They introduced a lot to it, but it still felt like a Pokemon game.
True.
So I would say that's very high up there. And then one that I liked, and I felt like it was an experiment at the time, and I just don't think the Pokemon Company sometimes does really crazy shit. But Pokemon Coliseum,
on
the GameCube,
that's a good one.
When you like had your Espeon, your Umbreon, you go around and you have to like get Darkness Pokemon and cleanse them and everything. I feel like that was similar to what we're talking about Arceus. That was a risk they took, and that had a sequel but never really went anywhere.
Yeah.
But I've seen ROM hacks of Pokemon Coliseum that people play on Twitch and stuff.
Really?
With new Mons in it. Oh yeah. With and before Arceus,
sure,
I would have said that was the direction I would have liked to have seen Pokemon go.
Gotcha.
So those are probably mine too. I would say Ruby, Sapphire, and you can include Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire too, for that matter.
Those are pretty good remakes.
Yeah, I liked the tracker in that we can go find not legendary, but shinies or like rare Pokemon areas. The tracker you had at the bottom screen, that was cool. And then Coliseum, because before Arceus, I would have said that was the direction I would have liked to have seen them go.
Right on. So for me, it's same situation: Gold, Silver, Crystal, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Heart Gold and Soul Silver, I think, are literally perfect. Like, there's so much stuff in those games.
There's so much.
There's, like, not even counting the core game. There's, like, all this extra battle tower stuff. Like, I used to play the one where you, like, beat a person, and it's, like, 3v3s, and at the end of that fight, you could grab one of theirs, and so you're steadily just, like, testing yourself. Dude, that game is so good. But if I had to pick one that's not those, Pokemon X and Y I thought were really, really good, and they came out when I was in college. And that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, because it was almost like the Pokemon Go situation. We'd go into the common areas on campus and find like 30 people playing DS Pokemon. And so we had like these little meetups of like, oh, if you don't have class on Saturdays, let's all get together and like trade Pokemons and do Wonder Trades and hang out. And like, it was super fun. I loved that experience. And then I thought Pokemon Conquest was the most interesting spinoff I've seen, because it's Final Fantasy Tactics with Pokemon, and it's cool.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna catch so much shit for your Final Fantasy. I don't like tactics.
That's fine. It's for anybody.
It is. I don't like that style of gameplay. I just never have gotten into it. But yeah, you're right. The other interesting one too, and I'm not sure if you played it. Did you play the Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy?
I did. So I had the original Game Boy one, and that was my first experience with like a card game in a video game format. And I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I eventually somehow bumbled my way through beating the game. Dude, that was a weird experience.
Yeah, the teaching method in that wasn't very good, which is why I could never put it up there.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. Like, you get a starter deck, and then you go to all the gyms, which is just card battling, and it was just so much RNG. Just like hoping that you got it right. It was so funny.
That might be the first Pokemon spinoff.
Yeah, probably.
In the video game space. That's crazy to think about now.
Probably that or pinball with the battery pack.
Oh, that was a Game Boy one too, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't played the pinball ones. I had friends who said the GBA pinball was really, really good.
It was, yeah. I liked all of them, yeah.
Very cool. All right, well, now that's the past of Pokemon, everybody, but the future, I think, is probably brighter than it's ever been. Pokemon's Legend Arceus has been out since the end of January on the Switch. Both of us have played at least to the end, and I think, Larry, you might have even completed the decks.
Yes.
It's incredible because it's one of those games that, you know, does take time. Probably not nearly as long as completing the decks on, say, even X and Y or something. But
60 hours is where I'm at.
How many?
60.
60. That's not bad for a full completion.
I need to. So I have them all to research level 10. So I caught all the mons. They're all research level 10. I have not perfected them out because you can go past 10 and stuff. But sure. I have almost all the side quests done. There was some DLC that came out, but I was playing Destiny, so I wasn't able to get the new DLC stuff done. But there's no new mons; it was just quests. Oh,
but there are downloadable quests now? I didn't realize that.
Last Sunday when they announced Gen 9, it's like there's 104 side quests available.
Nice. I think that game definitely has the foundation to be expanded further, so that's really cool. So for anybody who hasn't played Pokemon Legends Arceus, this is a past perspective on the Sinnoh region, and so you're like interacting with a bunch of familiar faces, so to speak, and so you're basically like hanging out with like the ancestors. Your character, it gets transported from the present to the past, which initially I thought was kind of like a Japanese isekai, like Sword Art Online kind of thing, but it's actually just like grabbing a character from like modern day Sinnoh and yanking them back.
Yeah, God literally just picked you up and said, "Let's do this thing."
Yeah, and then by then it's like, hey, you want to go like fight a deity, like an actual manifestation of all that's evil in the world?
Yep, who's also your smartphone.
Yeah, dude, this game is wild. I think there's definitely like places where it can be improved. The performance is kind of on the Switch, especially at launch. It was kind of rough, and then people on emulator apparently have gotten better performance in places.
Really?
Yep. So expect that to be a pretty popular game to play through emulator, like a lot of things on Switch moving forward, but we might get that Switch 2 eventually. So what were your kind of initial thoughts jumping into this?
So I had to beat a game for the podcast. Bloodborne. That's right. We were playing Bloodborne. So I was not going to allow myself to play Arceus until I beat Bloodborne.
Herculean task. I've never beat Bloodborne, so congrats.
Thank you. I have played more Souls games than I ever intended to in my entire life. Thank you, Justin. I put it in, and it was all I did. I had no performance issues. My expectations of graphics on the Switch are so minuscule.
Yeah.
and then you couple that with Pokemon, where my expectations for graphics or battle components or anything are also so low that I got this and it blew me away because I just didn't expect a lot. I was prepared for it. I was prepared for this game to be awful. I didn't want to watch any trailers. I just knew it was Pokemon. I knew it was in the vein of open world / Zelda, and it just blew me away. I guess the kind of the running theme of my thoughts on this are, this is the Pokemon game I've wanted since I played Red. Like, this is it.
I would agree with that. Yep.
This is the game I've wanted them to do. Are there things that could be better? Sure. Could it look better? It's Nintendo. Of course it could. But I really feel like this was the Pokemon Company seeing if the player base wanted this kind of game, because it's very different than anything that's come before. Like, there have been games with no gym badges, right? But they had the trials. That was Sun and Moon. There's nothing like this. You're calming wild Pokemon, and those calming of the wild Pokemon aren't even like battles. It's like you throw these herbs and stuff at them to calm them down while you're dodging their moves. It's very much like a Zelda kind of boss fight more than anything else, I guess.
Or like a Monster Hunter, because you've got that roll that has iframes, and so you're like rolling through different attacks and that sort of thing.
And then like the catching component, I've never been a big battler. Like, I know a lot of people like Pokemon for the battling, but for me, I am always about collecting. I've been collecting about cards. I have a living dex in Pokemon Home. Like, for me, it has always been about collecting. Like, even in Pokemon Go, I don't check IVs. I just want them. I love them. I have them. That's all I care about. And so for me, as someone who doesn't care about IVs, in this game, they have this system now where you give them like grit rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can boost their IVs all the way up.
It's really handy too, because you get those items constantly.
Yeah, excuse me. And you couple that with the fact that you get money by catching Pokemon, and when you release Pokemon back into the wild, you get grit rock material.
Mm-hmm.
There's a crafting system that's very intuitive, and you collect the stuff out in the open world, and you can use your Pokemon to go collect the stuff for you, which is amazing.
Not only that, but picking up stuff is instantaneous, like it is in Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild. There's no like in Zelda or something. You got a rupee. Great, thanks, Link.
And it's just so smooth. And you have these mons you can ride on. Like I pretty much only rode Stantler or
Bravery. Yeah.
Yeah. The fish wasn't convenient when you needed to use the fish, Basculean or whatever. But for the most part, I just walked around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went around and got all of the wisps so I could catch Spiritomb. Like I mentioned, it's one of my favorite Pokemon. And the moment that I knew that was going to be in there, it was a priority for me. I caught every single variation of the unknown. You don't have to, but I did.
Cool.
And that was kind of cool because it wasn't just them floating around in the wild like trying to find them. They were like positioned on like buildings.
They're almost like the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild. Like they're hidden around in really clever places.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. In this game, just again, it could have been just because my expectations were so low because I really felt like Sword and Shield was
middling at best. Like that was one of the few Pokemon games. It and Sun and Moon I dropped. I didn't finish the like core story or whatever.
Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon actually has a really, really hard boss battle in it with Ultra Necrozma.
Oh.
Which I would say is worth getting to because it is like it was so hard I literally pulled out my team from my Pokemon home to come beat it.
I love the design of Sun and Moon. I think it's some of the best character design we've seen in the entire franchise. I love the setting. That general structure is really dull, and it's very wordy. I was worried at first because this game starts off very wordy.
Yeah, I've been watching speedruns of it, and I think like the first like 30 minutes almost is like there's a little bit of action, but it's like almost unskippable text boxes.
Yep.
And that is rough.
Mm-hmm. I really wish there was a quick start feature or something.
Yeah, like I have no interest in restarting it. I call them mods, but like for that reason alone, I don't have any interest in restarting it because Pokemon, in my opinion, has really had struggle with telling a compelling story. I would say Ruby Sapphire has an story, but it's only because it's following just a very tilted version of what we got in Johto and Kanto.
Yeah, Omega Ruby and then X and Y, I think, had really excellent, like, endgame stories, because you have, like, the immortal guy in X and Y, and then there's, like, the dragon person in Omega Ruby and Sapphire that leads you on, like, a new path. That was all really compelling to me, I thought.
Yeah, the episode Z, whatever it was called, in Omega Ruby Apple Sapphire was very good.
Yeah, it's cool.
And the thing is, like, I like the gym battle journey. Like, I think that's good. But the thing is, you can't just copy and paste what you did in Johto and Kanto.
Yeah, if there was a way where you could, like, set up almost like Arceus, where they basically just release you into the world, say something like Elden Ring, which has spoiled me tremendously, and just set up the different gyms, and just, you could do them in any order. It's just when you show up after you've killed 3, it scales up. Now the person has more Pokemon than they would normally, or now they have a different team because you're a higher level.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Silver and Red and those games from back then, they don't feel like they have like aged poorly. That feels like the perfect kind of game for the console it came out on and the capabilities of technology at the time.
Yeah.
The problem is when you put that out on the Switch and you're like, we cut all your Pokemon down because we don't have the resources to put every single Pokemon in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, this wild area is very limited, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Those. And then the story is just boring and awful. My expectations were just so low for them. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which I also beat. I thought that was really good. I felt like it was a really nice journey back to the old like sprite style, right?
I would like to see another one like that, honestly. Like if they did something with that same kind of sprite design, or went back to just even using the old sprite designs, like actual flat sprites, that would also be cool because pixel art is very popular and kind of like chic right now.
I think that game, like I actually really like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were great. I just think Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, I think the Pokemon Company, whether it be through Nintendo, because Pokemon is really weird because it's like a triumvirate of ownership, and and they have to like balance out between Game Freak, Nintendo, and TPCI.
Right.
It's very how it's structured. So I think they're trying to balance it out. But Arceus, to me, as a longtime fan, felt like the creators were trying to give a love letter to the fan base and trying to say, we can do the game you're asking us to do.
Yeah. Because a lot of ways the Pokemon series has been very stagnant, right? And the problem is they still sell hand over fist.
Yeah. Between the cards and the games and the movies and the anime or whatever, right? Like Pokemon is a giant company. Like I think they're probably a top 10 company because they just sell.
And it's harder to do like a core audience because Pokemon is now literally like people in their 70s and 80s down to people who are like 8. Like, how do you market to that whenever not only is it a massive age range, like basically your potential audience is any age, and now because of like translation and making the game available in more places and it being a globalized company, now you're literally marketing to the entire world, all of planet Earth.
And that's why I get so frustrated because I will not sit here and act like Arceus is the best looking game I've ever played. I mean, for hell's sake, I just started Elden Ring today on my PS4 Pro. Like, I know what a really pretty game looks like. With that being said, I am more concerned with Arceus about what the franchise could give. The Pokemon all look fine. I don't care that the tree is repeated because the Pokemon I interacted with in the wild felt like living Pokemon. Some of them ran, some of them stared at you, some of them came up and asked for pets, right? Like, it was a very intriguing open world. Are there things I'd like to see improved? Absolutely. I wish my Pokemon could follow behind me.
Yep, that would be cool. At least one.
Yeah, at least one. Like, that was something that Soul Silver and Heart Gold did, and they like barely brought it back. They brought it back for Let's Go Pikachu, but like that was like, and I guess it was a little bit in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl.
Sure.
But like in this game, like why couldn't I throw my Sylveon beside me and just go around the wilderness with a Sylveon?
My other thing that I would like to see is button remapping, because I think switching into a mount with the plus button is bad.
Yes.
Why is open menu on like up direction or whatever? That's so weird.
Oh my gosh, I wasted so many items like trying to catch Pokemon, like just pushing the wrong button, scrolling through the different mods and stuff.
It's not intuitive. It works when you get the hang of it, and like you can play this game extremely effectively. My favorite thing is when I finally figured out how to like run through an area, throw a ball, and by the time I'm like waiting for that to see if I catch it or not, if I like don't care, I'm already like 3/4 of the way the other way. Same with fights. As soon as I know I'm winning a fight, I'm booking it and grabbing an item on the way. Like you can really get effective with this mechanic set.
How did you like the trainer battles in this?
I think the trainer battles still need a bit of improvement because it kind of seems like they almost forget about like really meaningful trainer battles until you get towards the end where you fight, you know, what's his name, and some of the like
you fought Dolo or whatever his name is.
Yeah, the like end guy who's like, I'm gonna catch God. Fight. Okay, whatever.
3-stage final boss fight.
Yeah, which I actually had trouble with the first time. I had to go grind. It was tough.
Yeah, we talked about Red. Right?
Yeah.
Fighting Red on top of Mount Silver. This is the first time Pokemon gave me that kind of vibe.
It's close.
I went in there and fought him. I was like, okay, well, but my big problem is I prefer Fairy type Pokemon. That's like my favorite kind of type.
Okay.
Typing. So I had Togekiss, Gardevoir, Sylveon, Samurott, and Crobat. And I was leaving the 6th spot open because I was waiting for Spiritomb, which I took my time with.
Can't get our boy Nidoking either. I really wanted him too, man. I love that guy.
And I just got rocked because it's Dragon type.
Yeah.
So and I'm just going in there and like they also have steel moves, and I was just getting crushed. So I went and leveled up, and then he threw out Giratina. I was like, oh crap, okay. So then went out, got a little bit stronger, got some more max revives, and went into it. And then Giratina had a 3rd form, and it's like, what is happening? And it was just a war of attrition.
Yep.
But like, it was never something similar to what I would say the best in the Souls series of bosses, where it's like, okay, I just need to change a little bit and I can get this clear. Like I don't need to do a whole lot. I just have to change a little bit of my tactics to get it. And that was what it was. And it felt great. I was just really impressed because I was not expecting that. When I went there the first time and he whipped it out and he's like, yeah, we're going to fight. I'm trying to catch God and you're in my way. I was like, holy crap, that was a turn I wasn't prepared for.
And I didn't really think much of the story for Arceus. I think the general like setup and the setting is really cool. But the actual like moment-to-moment plot, yeah, take it or leave it, right? But that final fight was like, okay, well now they're being serious with me and I need to like prepare for this. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we're ready for this part yet, but I know when we were kind of talking about what you wanted to see happen and stuff going forward, I think the story is very lackluster. However, I think it's because Sinnoh and Gen 4 is kind of unmemorable.
I would agree with that. It's very cut and dry. Here's more Pokemon. I know a lot of people will talk about the story of Platinum and Black and White, which Black and White has some cool moments. I think it's also a very wordy game in places.
For me, what I would like to see, like, again, graphics, put them to the side. I don't care. I would like to see more Mon. However, what would be amazing to me would be, could you imagine if you started and you went back in time and you were old school Kanto and you had a kind of a mechanic similar to Shadows of War, where like you have rivals, right? If you beat somebody, you can recruit them, and then you put them in place as your gym leaders, and then you create your own Elite Four. And then you go and you think you beat the game, and they're like, "You've done well. However, we discovered this new region with new Pokemon over the mountains. Go explore it for us."
See, so this is something that, again, I'm very spoiled by Elden Ring right now, and it's very top of mind because I've been playing it a lot. But Elden Ring is one of those games where just when you think you've seen most of the map, it'll open up another section, zoom out the map, and it's a huge additional section.
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa, this game is a lot bigger than expected. So I think, ultimately, from a structure perspective, I think that Pokemon as a game of systems rather than a game of very specific story elements is far more engaging and allows for more communication between players, right? So if you're saying, like, if you end up in a situation where you're building your rivals through a Nemesis-style system, or you're, like, interacting with a living, breathing world in a sense that has, like, story elements here and there in pockets, but there's no, like, one singular narrative. Or maybe there's, like, a giant, like, set of bosses or something. If you beat them, that's kind of like the big bads of the game or whatever. Like, there's a lot of ways you can structure Pokemon that I think would make it far more interesting. But for me, like, some of the like actual deepest feelings in regards to a brand and a set of cute characters I have ever felt is with the Pokemon animations and some of the movies and such, right? Like they put out that Bidoof animation. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
I cried. Like, it's beautiful. Why no game in the Pokemon franchise has gotten close?
Pokemon the first movie when the clones are fighting each other.
That's a deep, like, layered moment, and it's like it pulls in a lot of these really big storytelling moments and these emotions into a space where you can make it for all audiences.
And that's why I really think that Pokemon does its best when, like, for me, again, I am more of a collector than anything else, but in this game, it's like the Pokedex is empty. Go fill it in. And don't just fill it in by catching them. Feed them berries. Catch them without them being spotted. Knock them out of trees. Like, see them use certain moves in combat. Like, that was awesome.
It's really cool.
And that's why I am totally cool with it. I would love to either do it with new Mons or old Mons or keep going in the past, or maybe you're Red 20 years down the road and Old Man Oak's like Red. Like, I was trying to keep this kind of secret, but we have this region. I need you to go over there and check it out for me.
Like a Hollow Earth or something, like Godzilla vs. Kong. How cool would that be?
And the thing is, like, for the story, you can make it compelling, right? I think Team Rocket is probably the most compelling we ever got because Giovanni was an identifiable villain, right?
Sure. You look at him and you're like, bad guy. And he shows up multiple times in the story.
Yeah, and then you also have Silver, his son, right? Who's a bad guy-ish over in Johto. And there's layers to that. Like, there was that Pokemon anime show that came out on YouTube. It was like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, now top of my head.
There was a moment where like a Squirtle bit a Charmander or something, and it was like gut wrenching, right? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and it was great. So Pokemon is capable of telling a good story. It's just very interesting because it seems like you either get amazing gameplay, or you get amazing storytelling, or you get like really cool Mons, and they never really tie it together. And I think that's why we keep saying that Soul Silver was that perfect game.
Yep.
Because they already had the story, and all they did was add proper flavor to it and make it a little better. It already had the Pokemon we cared about that we knew from childhood nostalgia, and then made that better. And then it was just it added extra gameplay features like the walking behind, and jump up the battle tower,
online components.
Yeah, the Pokewalker you could have where you could take a Pokemon. I
still have that. Yep, that's a cool thing.
Yeah, don't lose it. That's worth a lot of money now.
Oh, I know.
And it's just, they are capable of doing it. And I think Arceus is the first time for me as a Pokemon fan where I feel like there's not new blood, but maybe like a breath of fresh air coming out of the company.
Yeah.
And there's a chance. So when the teaser dropped for Gen 9,
which was recently. Yep.
Yeah, Scarlet and
Violet.
Violet. Yeah,
Yes.
Scarlet and Violet. The starter mods look cute, but they always look cute. Like
Sure.
they always look cute. That's their marketing. And they kind of teased a similar open world.
Mm-hmm. Without seams, because they talked about it recently on Twitter. They said open world, seamless.
Yes, and I don't know. I really, really feel like Arceus was a test. It is very interesting to me. Maybe they knew from internal testing that I was going to do well, which is why we're getting Gen 9 so fast. Because if it was a test, a true test, you would kind of see what people liked and didn't like and then implement that going forward. But like you said, this maybe was supposed to come out way earlier than it actually did. And maybe COVID kind of pushed it. And so they were already got the ball moving.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of permutations to it. But for me, I truly mean it when I say it. This is the Pokemon game I have been wanting to play since I was way back in first, second grade, sitting in Phil Ingram's bedroom, and him handing me his Game Boy, and he's like, "Hey, I can't beat this boss. Can you help me?" And finding Nidoran, and just everything that opened up for me, and like my love for that series, and
yep.
Especially in a world where I was having more fun playing spin-offs than I was playing mainline, like Quest or the new Mystery Dungeon. Like I was having more fun playing that than I was having playing Sword and Shield or Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
Right.
This was much needed. I'll probably never say goodbye to Pokemon.
No, I don't think so. I think it's something that I would like it, Final Fantasy, Resident Evil. Like I plan Monster Hunter. I plan on being fans of those as long as they're around and as long as I'm around. And like we're saying, like every now and again, I'll get an itch for Pokemon, and my immediate thought was, I'll play Soul Silver again. Or I'll go find a ROM hack that like adds that breath of fresh air. But I think what you're kind of getting at is like, this is a game that really it set the tone for what could like actually happen in the Pokemon space, and it's so close to that magical, lofty, like cultural zeitgeist thing we've been wanting since we were kids.
Yeah, I think a big problem, and maybe it's because I'm not a stan. Like I never had like the Game Boy was until my GameCube was like the limit of my Nintendo experience. But I feel like Nintendo plays shit so safe constantly.
Oh, for sure.
Like I liked Odyssey, but it didn't really change up a whole lot, right? Of that method. Breath of the Wild did, but that was a launch title, and I think that they knew they needed to do something with Zelda. But I mean, Zelda has always been that way. That very like
it'll move systems. It and Pokemon will move systems, and Dragon Quest and Monster Hunter in Japan.
And so I think Nintendo needs to let Game Freak and TPCI have a longer leash. Like you're gonna get your money, Nintendo.
Oh, I agree.
Give them a little bit more time. Give them more creative freedom. And if Arceus was made on a crunch on a crappy system, sorry Switch lovers, but if you've watched anybody try to play Kingdom Hearts through the cloud on the Switch, you understand what I'm saying. I want to see what they can do. I want to see what they can do with a larger development window, more budget, and like let's put it out on whatever new hardware you have playing. But give me this. Give me a story that's compelling, but most importantly, give me mons that I can interact with even more. Because I feel like we did have our interaction with them, but I feel like there's more we could have. Like, I feel like that's capable of being done.
If you somehow combine all the interactive elements outside of battling that we've seen over the years into one single project, like I think it would dramatically change. Like people already connect to Pokemon, right? Like individual Pokemon. I am partial to the Gengar that I found randomly or whatever in Legends. Like there's a story, there's a situation, we're building a bond, so to speak. But throughout Pokemon, we've been able to like feed them. We've been able to take them into contests. There's the whole like petting feature,
dancing contests or whatever.
Yep,
making berries with them or berry juices,
the Poffins and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like. Yeah. These are like little systems that I think are easily injectable into a project, and there's just like there's so, and that maybe this is why we get so frustrated with the franchise, is there's so much opportunity because the brand is so strong and there's been so many cool things to come out of it, and there's such a huge audience hungry for just anything Pokemon. So I think if
that's why it's so hard, because it's not like with Capcom, like they put out Resident Evil 6 and it's like, damn you Capcom, like do better.
Right.
It's not just a company. It's three competing interests who are trying to get different things done. Nintendo's trying to sell units. Game Freak's trying to make a game that people aren't going to go crazy and kill them over, because with the backlash over Sword and Shield was ridiculous.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
And then you have TPCI, who is more about branding.
Yep.
And there are three very different competing interests behind a ginormous company.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's hard. I think whenever you don't have like a sole focus or a sole leader or a sole vision or a sole person to kind of take the buck stops with them, I think it's hard. I think it's complicated. And this isn't meant to be a downer. Again, it's more just
an observation.
I want to see Pokemon go forward and not stay stagnant.
True.
Arceus was a true step forward.
Yes.
And I want that to maintain. I don't want to get Arceus games for the next 10 years.
True.
Right?
If we just get the same thing again in Scarlet and Violet, but now you have to buy two versions, it's fine. Yeah. But the reason I really got fascinated with the ROM hack scene is because they were doing things that Game Freak wasn't. There's a ROM hack called Pokemon Prism that uses the Crystal engine that's massive. It is a huge game, and it technically will work on a Game Boy through an EverDrive or something, right?
Yeah, I played a ROM hack where you were Team Rocket.
Yeah. I played one where you fight zombie versions of Pokemon, and there was a lot of vulgarity. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with Pokemon, and obviously that's not what I want from the Pokemon branding. It's just a fun little stupid thing I found. But at the end of the day, this could be a huge turning point for the franchise, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes, it's the Nintendo of it that scares me.
That's the worry, right? Is how much effort are they willing to put in? Because as I'm playing Elden Ring, there are moments where the assets themselves don't look that good. Yeah, sometimes the environment textures don't look that good. However, the art direction, the way things are framed, all of that is masterclass. So how do we get Pokemon to do that?
Behind Elden Ring, do you know?
Longer than expected. It wasn't as short as what people might think between Sekiro and now, right? I think it's been in the works for a while.
And the thing is that's why I say Nintendo is probably your problem child in that triumvirate.
Yeah.
Because TPCI can still make cards, and TPCI can still make plushes, and they can still do all that stuff without a new game. Because the shit pushes off shelves.
Mm-hmm.
Game Freak would love more time to develop, maybe some more money to give you that big game they're trying to get. But Nintendo knows, you give me a Pokemon game, and I can sell it out.
Exactly. So they're really pushing for every year, every other year. I mean, just recently we had Pokemon Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond. 3 months later, Legends on Arceus. Then
3 months,
potentially at the end of the year, Scarlet and Violet.
The rumor is Christmas, yeah.
That's crazy. The amount of, and maybe this is something they've been working on for a while, which is why I think my theory of COVID really pushed these things back to kind of happen all at once. I think there's some water to that. But regardless, that's a lot of Pokemon content.
Just imagine if you gave Pokemon 8 years, or Game Freak 8 years, all the funding they needed to make their ideal game.
And then release it on, say, PC/multi-platform, just so that it's future-proof.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, build it so that you can build upon that. Make that your base game. I'm not saying you need to go MMO, necessarily, but make it so that you can easily expand that.
Yep. I think taking, an Elder Scrolls, Elden Ring kind of approach to Pokemon, we talked about a game of systems, and then incorporating a very small group of multiplayer components, so at most you play with 4 people at a time or something like that.
Yeah.
That could be huge.
Yeah. Arceus was the step I needed to see them take.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great step. It was the right step. With that being said, we are not where we need to be with this franchise.
Oh, no.
Things can be done better. More implementation can be happening. And I won't lie, even though I'm excited for Gen 9, I am also concerned how fast it's coming out. And I'm concerned that it's going to be more of Sword and Shield than it is Arceus.
Yeah.
And then
that's my worry, is Arceus might have spoiled us for something that they're not going to do again. Because the game's systems are very engaging and fun, and really fast-paced. What if they slow down the pacing again to something like a more traditional Pokemon game? Which I think would be fine in a lot of ways. But now you have, an audience who are whoa!
Yeah, the thing is, I don't mind. With the way the system is, with how many one-shots there are in battling, even if you're 20 levels higher, you can get one-shot by a Mon 30 under you. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, that's fun.
I think it kind of would make it so that you can go any direction you want to in gyms, right? Just make it all hard.
Yep.
make it hard, but in different ways.
Sure.
Make it so in this gym battle, you can only bring 3 Pokemon, and our rules are they have to be grass type.
Yeah, that's little like requirements like that would be fun. Yeah,
and it's a fire gym, so you have like there are things you can do. There are ways you can make Pokemon more difficult, right? Instead of like you have to have 2 badges to come in here, it's you have to have a team that consists of at least this typing, or you can only have this many Mon on your team.
Like, or you could do it like you could like have a traditional gym situation, do them in any order you please, and then once you beat it, you get additional challenges at that gym, so you can make return trips. Because we never come back to gyms; it's never happened.
You can in Soul Silver and Heart Gold.
Oh, why? I don't remember that.
There is an underground place in Viridian City where you can re-challenge all the gym leaders.
What?
Yeah.
I don't remember if I played through that. That's crazy.
100% sure. Yeah, I'm almost 100% sure you can rebattle the gym leaders in this like underground fight club thing in Viridian City.
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, but something like that I think would be like more of that sort of thing.
Or Fire Red, Leaf Green. It was one of those two.
Okay.
You could do that.
Okay. We'll have to fact because that's I still have a like my big like my original save file on Soul Silver.
Do you really?
So I want to pop in and
Mine's
be like
buried somewhere, but yeah, I don't know. You're right though. There are things you can do to make a Pokemon game compelling outside of the fact of collecting, and collecting is a big deal, especially for someone like me, where that's really important. But we can do more.
And what we're proposing isn't additional assets; it's just a change in structure. Which is affordable.
Yes. Don't get me wrong. I wish that every single Pokemon that you created was in there. I wish that there was home connectability where I could move up the Nidoking that I have had since Red, that I have transferred across to so many versions of your storage system.
Yep.
And to bring it, I could not imagine bringing in that Nidoking into Legends Arceus.
That would be cool.
The journey that sprite has gone on from Pokemon Red to now.
Yep. It's a wild world because all of that's possible.
Yeah. And there's a lot of distance to come. But being very pragmatic and being very honest, Legends Arceus is the best game Pokemon has put out, in my opinion, since Soul Silver, Heart Gold. And
yep, I could agree with that.
They need to continue going forward because you need to beat Soul Silver, Heart Gold. Just like Resident Evil had to beat 2 and it had to beat 4, like or Final Fantasy had to beat 4, then it had to beat 6, then it had to beat 7, then it had to beat 9, then it had to beat 10. Like you need to continue to strive to push forward and to be better. You might have stumbles along the way, but I would rather a stumble be with an innovation of technique instead of the same game being repurposed with different mons.
Yeah. And to build off what you're saying there, I do think that video game preservation is very, very important. It's something I talk about a lot on this podcast and in my writing. So I would, even though I want Pokemon to move forward, I want the ability to play the old games in their original forms.
Justin just explained to me about how Nintendo with the DS store is like close it down or whatever.
So 3DS and Wii U.
Yeah, luckily I have all the games downloaded onto my 2 separate 3DSs, but with the way Nintendo, like, I don't like Nintendo. I'm just going to be really honest.
They're their own worst enemy, and they're a big enemy to game preservation.
Like when I read about them like suing people for emulation, and then I also was seeing that like they were trying to like hurt the Smash community because people were emulating. Like, obviously, people owned the game, but they were emulating it so they could have an online component so they could play across distance, and they got sued.
That's the thing with brands, right? Especially in the game space. If we don't get it, fans are going to make it. Hackers are going to do it. And they're going to do it regardless. So why not work with them? Some companies like Sega.
I would never pirate a game. I would never steal something. I would never do that. But similarly, over last year, I owned Silent Hill Downpour, whatever one was on the PSP.
Oh, yeah.
I own it because I own all the Silent Hill games I played so far. But I was going to play it on stream, so I was going to emulate it through the PS2, and I couldn't play it because all the ROMs were like broken. I don't see anything wrong with playing that way when I own the physical game.
Agreed.
I'm not going to go out and pirate a copy of Elden Ring. I'll buy it. I'm not going to go out and pirate a copy of Destiny. I'll buy it.
Exactly.
But if I can't find your stuff and I want to play it, or like the because you won't re-release it, and like the cheapest version of it's going to be $400-$500 to play a 10-hour maximum experience.
Yep.
Like, and that money's not even going to creators anymore. That money's going to people who own the product, used game stores, which I'm fine supporting. I love my used game stores.
Oh, so do I.
Or like people who are just selling it, right? It's not
Exactly.
going to the company. I see nothing wrong with that. I'm not there's no one is getting hurt by that. You're allowing people, because one game that I'm really, really excited to play is Super Mario RPG. Never played it, can't find it. I never owned that console to begin with.
Oh, emulate that motherfucker, like for sure.
Yeah, and Justin actually helped me get an emulator and a ROM for it, and we're going to play it and have like a special like patron only review of it because I've never played it before.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's your fault, Nintendo. If you put that out on the Switch, that I could buy it, or you remastered it, or you did something with it where I could go get it. Like it's entirely different than me not being able to get my hands on it.
This is where the game industry needs to grow up, because if I wanted to watch a copy of Wanted, the movie, I can buy that on like 8 or 9 different platforms, including YouTube. I can either own the thing on my account, or I can rent it for like a really affordable amount. Do you have any like classic movies I've rented on YouTube through the years? Hundreds.
Yeah, Amazon Prime for me. You go on there and pretty much any movie you want to watch is there.
Yep.
And it's $2. I have no problem giving them $2 to watch a movie at all. It would
none.
cost me 4 times to have to go to the theater.
And on like the PS Vita and the PS3, when I found out I could get a bunch of the classic PlayStation RPGs that you couldn't either find or they're extremely expensive, I bought all of them, and they were like $6 or $7 a piece.
Same here. Yeah, Medieval was one I got on there because that's a hard one to find.
Alundra.
And I got that on there. And no, like I said, I do think the biggest problem with Pokemon is the Nintendo aspect of it.
Yeah.
Not only for gameplay output, but also for gameplay or content creation. I think they are the biggest hindrance. But you aren't fixing that. That's just an inherent problem that you have to work around.
Life finds a way. If you don't provide it, hackers will. And sometimes that's either like a lesser version or it's unsafe. So we just need a safe way to get emulation and ROMs to people.
Money, Pokemon.
Yeah, like we seriously will. And that's a lot of people have said this. It's not just us in this like confined ecosystem of nerdy dudes who like to play things in other places or like still want to go back and play Game Boy games. Like that's a fairly sizable audience. We're not the only ones by any stretch of the imagination.
I will give you my money, just allow me to do it.
Yep. But if not, whatever, man. So last thing I want to talk about, and I mean, we touched on Gen 9 a little bit, and so I'll kind of open the Gen 9 discussion by which of the 3 starters do you have your eye on?
I always do water.
Okay.
Every single time.
So you're going Quaxley, who's the duck.
With the toupee looking thing, yes.
Yeah, I'm very partial to that Fuecoco. He's a chili pepper gator, and people have already started drawing him with Totodile, who was my first pick in Silver, the first Pokemon game I ever owned. So I'm really partial to Totodile.
I'm really excited to see what that evolution line for that Mon in particular looks like.
Yeah, and he's so happy.
The fire lines always end up looking so badass by the end.
Yeah, I really am excited to see where that goes. Obviously, like, if this is the Arceus-style situation where it is an open world and it is more explorable and it's, like, a really well-designed world, it's clearly, like, inspired by Spain, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I feel like this could be good, but I have all the hesitations that we had for other Pokemon games, right? Like, I really want to see this push the mold again.
I really wish that we didn't get the trailer so soon. Because, again, like I was telling myself that Arceus was a testing of the water. It was a changing of the tide. It was going to be like, okay, we can do this kind of game.
Yeah.
And our fan base is going to be behind it. And then 2 weeks or so, 2-3 weeks after it comes out, it's like, oh, by the way, Gen 9's coming. And it's like pretty much done. It's like, oh, God. Okay.
And even if they release Gen 9, right, and they're like, oh, hey, just so you know, we developed this in tandem with Arceus. If people really like Arceus, don't worry about it, because we're going to come back to that for the next one or whatever. I would be fine as long as that messaging is clear.
I totally agree. I think a lot of people right now are trying to, is Arceus a mainline game, or is it a spinoff?
True. Yeah, that's a big discussion right now.
Because I don't think we have that answer. I think there are pros and cons to both sides of that discussion. Not pros and cons, but there's evidence to support either of those paths.
Yep.
I think the bigger question where we're at right now is with Gen 9, is it going to take that spinny off style of Arceus, or is it going to revert back to what came before Gen 8?
Right. And it could be down to a development timing thing.
Yep.
Regardless, I think I'm more excited about Pokemon than I have been in years.
Totally
Since Pokemon X and Y came out, and I had that big resurgence back into it in college. Played Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and I thought they were fine, but I never, like, had that same energy, and I'm back to it, right? Like, the fact that you get inside a Sneasel's little bucket, and all you see is little eyes peeping out, funniest thing I've ever seen in a Pokemon game.
Yeah. No, you are so right. Like I said, I will always buy Pokemon games when they release. Ever since I've had my own money, that has just been a commitment I have had.
Yeah.
I would really just appreciate it if I was excited about them again,
Mm-hmm.
like Arceus has me.
Here's
That's my
hoping.
big hope, is that because like I don't watch trailers and stuff, especially for things that I know I'm going to play or going to go
True.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched the very first trailer for Arceus and that was it, and I was like, okay, well, we're gonna get it. And for like, I haven't seen any trailers for the Batman. I don't watch trailers for the horror movies and stuff. Like, if I'm going to see it, I'll just go see it. Like, you don't need to sell me on it. I'm going to go see it. Especially
my biggest regret is seeing the trailer for Thor 3, the one that has Hulk in it. I'm like, I loved the Planet Hulk storyline as one of my favorite designs, and I had the like Planet Hulk animated version. I thought it was really good. And I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if that came to the MCU. And then in the trailer, they reveal that it's Hulk. I'm like, how cool would it have been for me to be in a theater and the Hulk shows up?
A big one for me, too, was Halloween 2018 when they, when it was a trailer where it showed that big, long tracking shot of Michael going into the houses and, like, killing people. But it was a trailer. It showed that whole tracking shot, and that was the most artistic scene in the whole movie.
Right.
And you don't need that to sell a Halloween movie.
Nope. There's a couple things that I think you can do for various brands, but like you're saying, if I'm super invested in the MCU, you've got me. I'm on the hook. Like, you don't have to give me a lot of information. Like Moon Knight, you show me the guy. Done. I am there.
Did you watch Peacemaker?
I did watch Peacemaker. Peacemaker was great. I thought about bringing you on just for Peacemaker.
Yeah, Peacemaker blew me away. I mean, I was watching that because Suicide Squad was great.
Yeah, it was surprisingly good.
Awesome. And I knew James Gunn was behind it. I was like, okay, you got me. I'm going to watch it. And the thing is, that's all I knew going into it. It was a crazy ride. It was emotional. It was funny. It was sad.
Topical, deep. Like, that show is really, really groundbreaking, I think, for the superhero genre.
It is the best thing to come out since The Dark Knight, in my opinion, as far as thought-provoking. Like, MCU has put out a lot of really fun content, but Peacemaker did something that I kind of forgot superhero content was capable of doing, especially with a no-name. Like, doing it with Batman or Superman or Iron Man or whatever, like, that's one thing, right?
Right.
Doing it with Peacemaker?
Nobody knew who Peacemaker was.
Like, yeah, I actually really don't like trailers. Especially today when, like, you can just release content so easily and so vast, you don't need to promote stuff like that. And I feel like people are just showing so much crap for it.
Yeah. It's hard because, like, you're competing in a space that's, like you say, completely just bogged down with stuff.
Yeah.
We have so many stuff. And it's crazy because, like, I mean, obviously you have different people like me and you who will jump into a franchise because we've been with this franchise, but, like, how do you bring in new people? How do you invite people who haven't tried one of these things? Like, branding and marketing is such a, like, weird, vast, eldritch beast at this point that it's, like, all theory. I have no idea how you can do it consistently.
My MBA, I did not want to go that route for my specialization.
I believe it.
More in my life. That is a mess. Like you said, it is a monstrous heap of guesses that I don't want to deal with.
Well, as we kind of close up this conversation, Larry, first of all, it was an absolute pleasure geeking out about Pokemon with you. It was one of my favorite chats in a while.
This was a very laid back episode. If you ever want to, like you said, Peacemaker, if you ever want to do something like that, this has been very chill. I will do it anytime.
Awesome. And so what do you got going on in the pipeline as far as what you want to plug and send people to?
Sure. So the biggest thing, guys, is my podcast, like he was saying, is called Here's Johnny. I do it with my good friend Justin. Actually, he's kind of making a name for himself in the game world.
I'm so excited for him.
Yeah, he got his front page article in the Toronto Star, which is like a really, really big Canadian newspaper. And now he's a staffed writer at Dread XP, which is like an online video game component of Dread Central.
And he's helped us in Forever Classic as well. So like
right,
we've seen a lot of Justin.
You guys in Nintendo life, Justin he's a crazy man. It's inspiring, to be quite honest. But yeah, right now we're in the middle of an Alien season. This week, when this comes out of recording, we just reviewed Alien Fireteam Elite. Going to do Signs this week. We're going to do some X-Files stuff here coming up soon, which I'm very excited about because I love me some X-Files.
Mm-hmm. You guys just finished up like a mini season with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
You watched the 2020. Do you watch the new one?
Oh no. I haven't even seen. Like, I want to go back and see the original because I don't like the really intense gore. But I know that like by modern comparison, the original is just very like
you will be shocked.
Well
at how
shot.
Little there is.
Yeah. And I've seen scenes from it, and I'm like, I could watch that from a filmmaking perspective. That'd be fine.
Yeah,
but I have no intention of watching the new one.
It's so bad. It's so bad, and it's mean-spirited. It was trash. Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah, so you guys did that mini-season. You went through all the Saws. Every Friday the 13th, you do a Jason movie. Like, it's really incredible. Like, I've said this before. Like, I came into your guys' podcast space as a fan. And, like, since then, I've stuck around and found you all to be just incredible people. And I consider you both really good friends of mine. And so it's just cool.
I love collaborating with you guys, and that's the thing is like I started doing podcasting when I stopped playing Pokemon TCG. I wanted a new hobby, and TCG was getting too expensive. And I've made so many great friends, like you and Rachel, and obviously Justin and Daddy Gamer and everybody. Right? It's just been so much fun going through this. And no, like as I said, if people ever want to talk about something fun, just hit me up, and I'll make time for it because this is what video games are at its best.
Yep.
Making friends, talking about stuff, and doing guesswork and hot takes and seeing what's going to happen next.
Enjoying people's companies and making those connections. Because at the end of the day, games are important. They're culturally relevant. They're works of insane levels of creation and collaboration. And so it's one of those things that I think is going to be more important as time goes on. And it's been the biggest thing in my life. And I've made all of my lifelong friends through it. And so it's super, super important. But thank you so much for being here, Larry. Do you want to direct people to your Twitter or just mostly send them through the podcast?
It's privated just because of the nature of like my real world job. It's Beaver LA. If you request to follow me, you can check me out there. But the podcast is at Here's Johnny Cast. We tweet out the show stuff. Justin's links to his articles and stuff. And then I think Justin's Twitter handle is the Justin Wood now. Mm-hmm. It used to be Pickle Thing, but now that he's
I saw that change, and I'm like, that a kid.
He's all big and important. He's no longer Pickle Thing.
Funny. And then, of course, you can catch our good friend Rachel at the Zombie Girls, and that's GRRRLZ, I think.
Yes. Yep.
And they've got a bunch of really excellent content. I listened to some of their deep dives on things. It's good. Mm-hmm.
Like Rachel is a crazy person.
Yes. Yeah,
the
she's extremely talented.
She has is unmatched.
Meaningful content too. This isn't throwaway stuff on BuzzFeed. Like the shit that we all do in this space is like really thought-provoking and meaningful.
We recorded 5 podcasts last week. When she hopped on with us to record Alien Fireteam Elite, that was her 5th podcast of the week.
Yeesh. An absolute titan in this space, man.
Yeah, and she's the editor of The Advocate. Like, she's like...
Yeah.
She has a real-world job, and she's pushing this content. I don't know. She is inspiring, too. You guys all are inspiring. It's just... I love it. I love podcasting, so yeah.
Very, very cool. All right, and of course, if you do want to have more content from us here at Forever Classic Games, check out foreverclassicgames.com. Send us an email at theforeverclassicpodcast@gmail.com, and then check us out on Twitter, ForeverXClassic. If you want to find me specifically, it's at AC McCumbers, and if you just search for Alex McCumbers, I'm sure you'll be able to find lots of different articles and things that I've done in the past. But again, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Larry, for being here. We'll catch you next time. In the meanwhile, enjoy those Pokemon games.
See you guys.